Well, hello and welcome to the Bloodstream Podcast, a show serving the greater bleeding disorders community, brought to you by Believe Limited and Bloodstream Media, and made possible thanks to our presenting sponsor, Takeda. I am your patient advocate and host, Patrick James Lynch.
And I am your healthcare advocate, nonprofit nerd, and your other host, Amy Bradford, reminding you to please speak to a healthcare professional before making any treatment decisions.
Did you nearly forget you needed to use a microphone?
Yeah, I just want everyone to realize that while Patrick was doing his intro, our producer Keith just banged on the window and I had to bring my microphone all the way over to my face.
And I just pretended all of that was normal, but then had to talk to you about it immediately.
100%. And I thought we were just going to not talk about it. It's fine.
No, that's not going to fly on this show. We are about
New Year, baby,
transparency.
2025, baby.
We're putting it all out there, and we're learning about microphones. And on today's show, the first of 2025, we have got an interview with Aaliyah Cazariel and her boyfriend, Jared. Aaliyah, as I came to know her, Cza, has a blog on living with hemophilia that caught my eye. I'll tell you more about that a little bit later. And behind the mystery is the longest and only regular series on television about rare and genetic diseases. Amy and I speak to the creators and producers of that show in today's interview segment. We have got all of that and more on today's program. Welcome to Bloodstream.
Listeners, as always, thank you for joining us today. And if you like what you hear, please share this episode with your family and friends. Do all the things and make sure to subscribe to the Bloodstream Podcast wherever you get those podcasts.
I also want to remind you, dear listeners, that the Bloodstream Podcast is indeed made possible thanks to our presenting sponsor, Takeda. Yes, that is right, Takeda. Takeda's got this website, bleedingdisorders.com, where you can learn all about Takeda's resources for and commitment to the bleeding disorders community. Amy Bradford, Takeda believes in a world free of bleeds. Did you know that?
I 100% do. Yeah.
And they're dedicated more than ever in their efforts to offer a wide range of programs and support to help patients throughout their treatment journey, wherever on that journey they may be. And you can learn more by simply visiting bleedingdisorders.com. One more time, because it's in the script, bleedingdisorders.com. And for their founding and ongoing support of the Bloodstream Podcast, rolling into 2025, I would just like to say thank you, Takeda.
Thank you, Takeda. I do want to give a shout out to Russell behind you, who's looking out the window. Just for those of us that have video, it's just made my day that Russell's like just hanging.
He's got a very forlorn body language about him. As he stares out there, anxious for the moment that we will depart this office, which will happen soon, sir. But we need to record a podcast first.
Well,
we haven't left the office.
Antsy. I know. I was about to say he's not antsy. If it was my dog, who is no longer with us, but if it was 3:00 p.m., which we are now recording, she would be antsy. Russell's killing it.
Well, what you don't know is that just before we hit record, he was outside of this office door, but then when he was scratching incessantly for my attention, I had to let him in. I think he has accepted that though it is this time of day, we're still sitting down, so he'll just wait a little bit longer. But I'm not with you in studio to remind you about your microphone or other things today, and we haven't gone out as much today as maybe we otherwise would have, Russell, because Los Angeles is experiencing a historic fire, which I doubt we're breaking news for anybody by the time that this comes out. But obviously we're in Los Angeles and sort of in real time going through that. Neither Amy or I or anyone on our staff has been, I'll say, directly affected, though we have had staff members who have evacuated and taken some precautions because they don't want to wait till later to be told to do so. Mm-hmm. So it is very real for us, a little scary. And Amy, we haven't really chatted much about it, but what's your experience of this kind of bizarre, historic start to the year been like for you?
Well, I grew up in Colorado, and so wildfires were very typical, but not anywhere near the vicinity where I was. We experienced just kind of the continual 24-hour news channel talk about it and containment and evacuation notices. So I I have an understanding, at least from when I was growing up, of what everything means. I've never once been in a situation where they have felt surrounding.
Yeah.
We all live in the LA basin, which is, the majority of LA County, kind of tucked into the middle. All of our staff believe limited. Our office is kind of directly in the middle of the LA basin. Not it's a little north of the LA basin. So we don't have evacuation warnings. The fires are to the west of us and to the east of us and to the north of us. But we are experiencing tremendous amount of smoke,
Yeah.
and the skies are crazy, and it's just everybody's unnerving. It's just unnerving, because of the winds. So yeah, we're okay. We're just watchful, watchful as it is, but the winds make it very nerve-wracking.
Vivian had her first day of school yesterday, and to celebrate it, we went
She
for a little
did.
sunset beach walk at
Yeah.
Manhattan Beach. And, I was working during the day, wasn't paying attention to the news. And just as we were approaching the parking lot, there was, the phone did the loud alarming thing. And I just assumed it was an Amber Alert. Um, we park the car, we get out, we go to the beach, we go to the little playground at the beach. And Natalie and I look north, and it was like, is Malibu on fire? And we're there at the beach and just observing the fire as well, and the gigantic amount of smoke that it was. I'm watching the planes come in, because the planes come in
Yeah.
from off the west coast, and they're operating through this smoke. But it was bizarre to be there and like pushing Vivian on the swing and trying to get her to have some chicken fingers while we're playing in the sand, but then also looking north and wondering, should we be doing differently? Is it weird or disrespectful or sense like to be play? It was just, I have never been in a moment like that before.
Yeah.
It was very,
Yeah.
very strange. And yeah, I mean, this is obviously, again, not news, and hopefully by the time that this is published in a couple of days, we're well past the worst of it. But it is a historic event, and to bring it back to the world of bleeding disorders, I was also talking to Natalie this morning about, we really should have an emergency prepared pack ready to go. I
Yeah.
mean, everybody in
Yeah.
Southern California is told that anyway, due to
I know.
earthquakes and what have you. And in my mind, I was also thinking through like, oh yeah, and the medicine and the supplies, and wow, if this happened last minute, what would I have to? So it's also a reminder too of all how often these life events, one way or another, intersect with our
Right.
health. And
Right.
yeah, that's what we're living through right now. Bizarre.
I know. This is kind of switching topics just a little bit, but I mean, this is like a a massive way to start the new year. But to start the new year, um, I guess, what are you thinking of? What are you looking forward to in the new year? Do you do resolutions? Like, what's your jam?
I sort of set three macro goals this year, which I guess might be the same as resolutions. I don't know, but I was like, I want to think about my life. I want to think about myself in this like mental, spiritual way, in this physical way, and then financial health. So those are kind of my three large buckets that each quarter, each month, each week, each day, my goal is to try to track how am I making progress along each of these three lines. And 8 days into the year, I'm staying decently accountable to that, but we'll see how it goes. I'm as guilty as anybody of by February generally throwing out whatever my resolution had been. So took a slightly different approach by giving myself three broad buckets and then breaking it down by quarter, month, weekday, and seeing how that helps me, if it helps me. So
Mm,
that's my plan. What about you? You have
that's
anything?
awesome. I think I think last year my word for myself was balance. I had so many things.
Mm.
It was almost comical of how many different pockets of life. I got married. That was a huge thing. My travel last year was insane. I had writing stuff that was insane, and then we had so much work stuff, and with the merger with Brandstar, at the end of the year, it was just so much. So to manage and balance my life with like making sure that I gave myself rest, I gave myself play, I gave myself, times to go. That was really last year's focus. And this year, it's kind of I'm looking at like really trying to create some good boundaries for myself,
Mm.
to not place myself in places that maybe necessarily take a lot of emotional toll in some ways, just because of how I function in the world, to create some boundaries. But then in my lane, the lane that I decide to go to, I think the difference of just like creating boundaries or balance with that, the lane that I choose to go hard in that lane, and to be
Mm.
hardworking, to be focused, to be driven, to give to people, and to really like push forward. Like that's what I'm looking forward to this year.
Mm.
And like not trying to do that in abundance, like just,
Right.
but really like in my lane.
Right. Can't boil the ocean, but focus on the
Right.
part that
Yes.
is yours and
Yes.
do it well.
Yes. Yeah.
I, that sounds really smart. I'd like to change my answer. I'm going to do what
Oh
Amy's going to do.
God.
It's my new New Year's resolution is just to do what you're doing.
Okay, every single episode we'll ask what Patrick's resolution is. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great.
That's
It'll
the
be a
content
journey,
America.
listeners. It'll be a journey.
A journey of failure and setting new goals. I don't know, but you mentioned your writing.
Creativity.
Thank you. You mentioned your writing, and I want to use that as an opportunity to share a little bit about something that as I said in the intro, caught my eye. Hemophilia News Today is a website that's been in operation for a number of years. We've referenced articles and writers, contributors to that numerous times on the pod. But recently there was an author who posted something that caught my eye. And then when I looked at her previous works, I just found the subjects and the titles and what she was sharing kind of interesting. And just as we were recording here, I was like, I wonder if she's posted, and 2 days ago, her most recent blog on Hemophilia News Today, why my husband prefers manual wheelchairs instead of electric ones. And I think I may have said in the run-up boyfriend, but I suppose it's husband, so I got to get that right. So Cza, as I came to know her by, she lives with her husband, Jared, who has severe hemophilia B, and she is a regular contributor to Hemophilia News Today. They live together in the Philippines, and she positions herself as a digital marketer, entrepreneur, and a writer. So I contacted her to see if she would be willing to come on the show to share a little bit more, or just share more with me about her inspiration for writing, and why is it that format in particular is the one that she chose to use to connect with other people about the experiences she was having as the partner of somebody with severe hemophilia B. And here's how she answered that question.
I've always believed in the power of writing. Always been a writer at heart. And hemophilia being as rare as it is, I know that it's not an experience that everyone has or can relate to. So I just thought that maybe writing about it might be a way for me to, at least be able to share with everyone what it's like.
So as mentioned, Cza's husband, Jared, has severe hemophilia B, and they live in the Philippines where, as we know, hemophilia care and treatment is quite different than it is for someone here in the United States. Here's how Jared shared his point of view on the difference between his care and the care that someone like me might receive.
Here in the US, there's prophylaxis for hemophiliacs. Here in the Philippines now, we don't have that. We only have on-demand factors. Whenever we have injuries, that's where we go to our healthcare providers, and they can give us the donations that come.
You can hear more excerpts from my conversation with Cza and Jared by following Bloodstream Media on social media, where additional clips will be released over the coming days. And of course, you can read Cza's blogs on hemophilianewstoday.com. We'll include a link to her most recent post in the program notes for this episode. So that's neat. Glad we're able to bring voices from around the world through the Bloodstream podcast and our social media properties. We are trying to do more in 2025 with video and social media in general. So if you aren't already following us on your social media platform of choice, you might add us to your scroll, because there's going to be more and more stuff this year.
You can see our beautiful mugs on social media.
So there's
Yikes.
that.
Yikes.
Speaking of mugs, I didn't have a transition there, but
It did. It was a perfect transition. Own it.
Carri and Molly have mugs.
Yay!
Don't we
Yay! They're
all?
the best.
And they are the best. So Carrie and Molly, they're going to introduce themselves in a moment, so I won't belabor with backstory. But just quickly, a big part of the Brand Star move for Believe Limited included getting to partner meaningfully with Carrie and Molly, the creators and producers of the only and longest running series on rare disease on television, Behind the Mystery. So we asked them to come on to talk with Amy and I and share with you all, the Bloodstream audience, why did they start this show? What is it about? And most excitingly, at least for me, where is it going in 2025? So here's Carrie and Molly to tell you all that and more.
All right, I am joined now by Carri and Molly, the co-creators of Behind the Mystery Rare and Genetic Diseases, which is going into season, what is it, 74? It's been on for a long time now. You've really created a foothold for rare diseases on TV.
It's 12 years.
Well, yeah, we're going into our 13th year.
Wow. Well, congratulations. Thanks for coming on to chat a bit with me here for Bloodstream. Part of the Brand Star merger included getting to meet and start collaborating with the two of you on all things rare disease. But let me take a step back here. Could you give our listeners a bit of each of your rare disease background, and then how is it that you two first connected?
Sure.
Molly, maybe you can kick it off for us.
So my twin brother was actually diagnosed with acinar cell cystadenoma 13 years ago. So that was my first experience with rare diseases. He was actually only one of 12 ever diagnosed in the country with this condition. Yes. And then flash forward to 2 years ago, as fate would have it, I guess, my daughter was diagnosed with pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorder. So that's my experience with rare personally. Carrie?
My daughter was undiagnosed for 19 years, and I was spending a lot of time in the hospital with her. And we found NORD and saw that there were 7,000 rare diseases. And so we were just spending a lot of time looking at these rare diseases. And so that's how I got involved with the rare disease space. Finally got her diagnosed with one of them.
And what's the nature of her condition?
She has primary immune deficiency disease, hypogamma-globulin anemia, and intracranial hypertension, and dysautonomia and POTS, and Ehlers-Danlos, and now she's got some disease where she spontaneously creates adhesions that wrap around her organs. So, just a few.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I remember learning at one of the Serious Fun camps, formerly the Hole in the Wall gang camps growing up. I remember there being a moment where I just realized, wow, you can really have anything. Because it seemed as though every year I had campers that were there with me who it's like this guy's skin will just fall off. This person's kind of like Gumby and their body can. It's like, wow, there's just, you miss a protein here, you get an extra protein there, and it's incredible what the body can do. So then how is it that the two of you first intersected? What brought you two together?
So Carrie and I were actually producing Designing Spaces, the home improvement show. And our company had just purchased The Balancing Act, the morning show on Lifetime. And we both sat together in this part of our office building that we dubbed the Roost. It was basically like a little coop, like little tiny hen houses, like the size of like a utility closet. Mine had 0 windows. Carrie's actually had a window and it overlooked the parking lot. So I would go into her office multiple times a day to get a little glimpse of the sunshine. And we developed a friendship from there.
And then when we started pitching Behind the Mystery to our executive board, my daughter was in the hospital at that time. She had been in the hospital for maybe 3 weeks. And we had all these calls that we were doing, and so that's how we just started working together on it. So.
Yeah, and at the same time, obviously, my brother had just been diagnosed with his condition too, so I heard rare disease from there, and Carrie was obviously, searching for the disease that her daughter has, and found NORD that way. So we came together and we said, let's try to find. My motivation was really, let's try to find someone like my brother. To see what the long-term outcome was. And Carrie was, let's find a diagnosis for my daughter. We joined forces The series started just as a 6-part miniseries as part of the Balancing Act. But since then, we've covered over 100 different diseases on the show. And it's just grown from there, really.
That's incredible. So the initial inspiration then, would it be fair to say, was really the personal quest for treatment or a cure?
Absolutely.
Just for a name.
And it just so happened, sorry, what was that, Carri?
Just a name, just to figure out what was wrong with her, just to get a diagnosis.
And as you've since grown over the years now, over 100 different diseases featured, are there a couple few consistent themes or testimonials that you hear from patients, caregivers, families, clinicians, industry partners? I'd love to know what the emerging themes you've discovered are.
Yes. So this is one of the most sort of rewarding aspects of creating Behind the Mystery. Hearing how our work makes a real difference in people's lives. So we exhibited a couple years back at Nord, and someone came up to our booth, a gentleman, and he said, I know 2 people who have been diagnosed personally because of your show. Total mic drop moment. This is exactly why we do what we do, knowing that, our content has helped lead to a diagnosis in this case and better outcomes, hopefully, for these individuals. It's really humbling and reminds us of the importance of shining a light on rare diseases.
Yeah. I think my favorite story from Nord when we were there was when the 2 teachers came up to us and said they were using our programming for Behind the Mystery to train doctors, their students, on rare diseases, which we had no idea that was happening. But boy.
Very cool too. And then from an advocacy perspective, so we worked with the LGS Foundation last year, and she post show told us that she found 77 new families because of our program.
Wow. I mean, talk about real world impact. That's pretty tremendous. So what are some of the challenges that you have faced as producers, as advocates, as you have gone about this 100, is it 100 episodes now thus far, or over 100 episodes featuring 100 different disease states?
Yeah, over 100 episodes. Yeah.
So are there common challenges or headaches? What are you bumping up against as you try to showcase these incredible stories?
I think the hardest part is to find the patients to tell their stories, who are not in clinical trials, because we don't want to have any jeopardy with clinical trials. So to find a patient that can really talk about what their journey has been, and to speak with their families and to talk about how it's affected everybody, I think that's always the hardest part, is to find the patient.
Why do you think that is?
Because they're rare diseases and it's hard to find the patients. I think the whole point of the show is really to help people find for me, the whole point of the show is for patients to find their community, to find their disease. And if we can show it in a way where it's like linear and concrete, where this is what happened to me, these were the signs, this is my journey, this was what I was misdiagnosed as, and this is how I got my diagnosis, and this is the doctor you need to go to, this is the test you need to take. That's the outcome of it, is to find new patients. But for the companies that we work with, or advocacy organizations that we work with, they have to find a patient to be part of the show to give us that journey. So, yeah.
Do you find ever, Molly, that the industry partners or the advocacy organization partners are hesitant or reluctant, or don't believe that the opportunity would be beneficial for some reason? Any resistances from those stakeholders?
I'd say advocacy always wants to be a part of our program. I feel that they see the benefit to helping to amplify the voices of the patients that they serve. So there's tremendous value, obviously, there. But what I feel it boils down to in most cases is marketing.
Yeah, I think more timing. It's more like, are we at that point in our company where we need to raise awareness about, this disease, find patients, and, what do we want to talk about a drug that's in clinical trials? Do we want to talk about a drug that's that we're thinking about, working on, that we want to find a community for? Or are we talking about a drug that's just about to get its approvals, and we want to talk about the brand of it? So I think the timing and where, at the end of the day, we're going to work with everybody because this is a phenomenal show. It's just, when are we going to work with you? And I had a conversation with a woman today who I've been speaking to. Molly's like, you've been speaking to her for 2 years. And I'm like, and I will speak with her for another 2 years, because when she's ready and we're ready, we'll work together, because we both see the value in what we're doing, and we're excited about working together, but it has to be when everything is ready to move forward. Everything is perfect in my book.
Yeah. So I'm inclined to ask based on that, Carri, and this is going to seem like a softball question, and maybe it is, but what's different because of the fact that you have a personal experience with rare disease? What's different than if you were just Carri, television producer, showrunner? What's the difference in the way you go about your work, do you think?
I think the difference is I know what it's like to be a patient personally, because I have a rare disease myself. I know what it's like to be a parent of a patient. And I want to make sure that whoever we work with is really ready for working with us. Because it's not, we're not just like, here, here's the lights and the camera and the action. This is a project. We need to find the really good patient story to be that story that's going to really attract people to watch the show. We need to find the perfect key opinion leader, because that key opinion leader may be the one all over the country that people are going to be calling, from their doctors in like Hoboken, New Jersey, who don't have anybody in their city that has, any reference for this disease state. So we need to make sure that's in place. We need to make sure there's a foundation that can help support and take the patient after we've watched the show, to give them support and community. And we need to make sure that the companies that we're working with are really looking out for the patients and are really partnering with that advocacy organization. So when those pieces are all aligned, then it's time to work. If they're not aligned, if they're not balanced out yet, I want these pieces, and they have been, they've proven to be the piece for that disease state, so that when we put it on the website, or when we put it on YouTube, or when we give it back to the companies that we partner with, that they have that piece on that disease state that can help everybody on every level. And so if they're not ready, to me, that I don't want to waste my time doing it, because it's a lot of resources and a lot of money to make these pieces. And I certainly don't want to partner with a company that I'm going to have to push and shove and, and coax to be part of it. It's a partnership, 1,000%.
And Patrick, you know this more than anyone else, being a patient in this space. Patients or people personally touched are the ones who are the movers and the shakers in this industry, and making mountains move for their children, with rare diseases. They're the ones founding the biotechs and bringing mouse models to life. So, having that personal connection, I feel like really, and the passion, really, really helps to drive things forward.
I agree. Those lived experience experts aren't the ones who you hear saying, "Oh, that's not how we do things here. Oh, we don't do it like that." They're the ones who are willing to try anything that has a shot at success to make a difference, because it's personal, because it affects their family. We have a couple of minutes left, and I want to ask you about Behind the Mystery 2025. But before we get to that, Believe Limited merged with Brandstar. I mentioned earlier that the programs that the two of you are responsible for, Behind the Mystery included, was amongst that which made Brandstar a very compelling place for Believe Limited to plug into. Can you give us just a little bit of your experience? Believe's been there for a few weeks. You've been there for significantly longer. What is Brandstar, and what do you enjoy about being a part of Brandstar?
I think Brandstar, for me, has like all the resources. Like if I know that I want to do something and I want to do it to the best of my ability, that I can pick up the phone and I can find somebody in my company to help me bring that to fruition. Because I'm a producer. Like, a producer is the one who creates the stories. They find the people to partner with, but then we have this whole team around us that can get every piece of it done and do it to an incredible level that I'm proud of, the stuff that I work with. So everybody that we bring into the company, and I'm so glad you're with us, Believe, because we love you. But we really feel like it's support. Everything is supporting us to do the best job we can possibly do. And when you're doing something that you're passionate about, you don't want to, in this field that we're working in, the rare disease field, you want to be really proud of what you're bringing to the people that your community is. And also, at the end of the day, you're on TV. How does it get any better than that?
How does it? And truly, Patrick, we've told you this many times before. We've been huge fans of your work, and of the films and documentaries you've created with Believe and your podcast. And we couldn't be more thrilled to have you on board. And I would say, echoing what Carri said, it's all about. So there's no limitations working with BrandStar. You can truly, if you have an idea, you can make it happen. And the CEO is so wonderful and supportive of all of our efforts.
So speaking of, what are those efforts for Behind the Mystery in 2025? What's new? What's different? What's exciting you? What can you tell us?
So we're very excited to be working on a podcast, or restarting our Behind the Mystery podcast in partnership with Bloodstream Media and Believe. We're also together working on a couple new reality shows. So that's exciting. We can't talk about those just yet, but stay tuned. For Behind the Mystery, we're working on increasing our distribution, adding more streaming platforms so patients can access the show easily. And what else, Carri? What am I missing?
I think we're also being able to find patients, to monitor websites, to do things that we weren't, able to do before. So there's a lot of little nuances around Behind the Mystery that we found were difficult, for our partners to do. So we brought that in as well. So there's just a lot.
Well, we'll include a link in the program notes to the impressive library of segments that Behind the Mystery has produced thus far. But for those who are listening, where can people go to find the segments from Behind the Mystery?
You can go to behindthemystery.com, and every segment is uploaded there to our library. And then if someone wants to reach out to us personally, I'd be happy to give my email address. It's mmager, MMAGER @brandstar.com.
Well, Molly, Carri, producers and creators of Behind the Mystery, thanks for joining me today here on Bloodstream, and I share your enthusiasm for everything that is yet to come.
Thank you for having us, Patrick. We're so honored to be here.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Carri and Molly from Behind the Mystery, Jared and Cza from the Philippines, or Hemophilia News Today, for joining the Bloodstream podcast. And thanks as always to our presenting sponsor, Takeda, for helping ensure that this program goes on. Bleedingdisorders.com for more. Bradford O. Our next episode comes out on the 24th in 2 weeks, as always, the second and fourth Friday of the month. What can listeners expect on that episode?
Bradford O does not have the same ring as Bordeaux.
It really doesn't. It really doesn't.
We're going to have to come up with a new thing. Bordeaux was my nickname in college. I don't know if listeners missed that, but that was my nickname in college, and it has followed me.
It has. And it's now experiencing a forced phased out ness.
I know. But anyway, January 24th is going to be our next episode. And we have a fantastic interview with Dr. Ben Samuelson-Jones. He's going to discuss the safety and efficacy of a gene therapy treatment in hemophilia B, Pfizer's product for hemophilia B. So we're excited to hear from him about that. That's going to be a baller.
Been on before. Great guest. Happy to have him back on.
Great guest. Yes.
So if you haven't already, please do subscribe. And with that,
Yep.
that is all for this episode. If you haven't already, do subscribe to have the next episode delivered to you the moment it goes live.
And loyal listeners, as always, feel free to email us at mailbag@bloodstreammedia.com. You can inquire about all of our casting opportunities. We'd love to hear your stories or any maybe topics that you would like to hear on the podcast. We'd love to hear from you. You can find us also on social media. You can also find us at Bloodstream Media's social media. We're all over. Please reach out.
I am your host, Patrick James Lynch.
And I am your other host, Amy Bradford.
And until next time, take self-care of yourself. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.